teacher before that. I'd like to introduce my team. Amie Parker here. She's been in this role, Technology Integration Specialist, since 2007. And prior to that, she taught for 11 years in our district, primarily primary, elementary. And then Brandon Tepley over here, and he taught for 15 years in the classroom, and this is his third role here in this role as well. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Mukilteo School District. Just if you're not from the North Seattle area, you may not know much about our district. We have about 16,000 students in our district, so relatively large district, and probably about 47% free reduced. So we have a unique district where we're somewhat split. So it's there's a lot of challenges that come along with that. We have some very high income areas on the Puget Sound, and then some areas in South Everett that where students have different challenges. So that we always are trying to keep all of our students in mind when we're implementing our technology. As you know, with technology, since the kids don't have access, we have to think of ways to make sure that they have access, and we've done a lot of work around equity to ensure that they have more access. So today, we're going to present what we're doing in our district, and we don't have it all figured out. We're learning all the time with you. So today, we're going to share what we're doing in our district, but also we want to hear from you. So as we present today, if there's anything you're thinking of you might want to share that others could learn from, please feel free to share that, ask questions, and at the end, hopefully we'll have some time to kind of go through some of those questions that you might have, but also some time to share. So we'd love to have you share what you're doing in your district if you have some great ideas. I know we've learned a lot from the TOSA group that meets in this area, the teachers on special assignment that do technology, so we've learned a lot, so you might even see some of your work embedded into the work that we're doing. So thank you so much for being here. We're glad we have a big group because we can all learn together and learn from one another. So today this is what it's going to look like. We'll learn from each other. We're going to talk about what our vision is in our district, and then also a little bit around our professional development and how we're doing that. We're always trying to think of creative ways to reach our teachers. Obviously with contracts and limited time, it's really challenging at times to reach out to all of our teachers, so we'll share a little bit about that. And then of course, what teacher leaders are out there? How do we identify our teacher leaders to embed that technology into their instruction and support our buildings?
All right. So as our team of 3 instructional technology specialists and director, we kind of have a big job to do. And promoting professional development to support students as well as staff, we have developed this vision. So we're committed to the success of every student by providing staff with necessary technology support, training, and resources. Pretty vague, but good blanket statement. But ideally, we're trying to add to the teacher's bag of tricks by effectively differentiating or providing ways to differentiate and enhance student learning. Really focusing on the ability to promote critical thinking and innovation. So trying to provide staff with those different ideas. Also improving productivity, communication, collaboration, as well as enriching curriculum and instruction.
So we really do want to hear from you, and in order to facilitate that, we set up a back channel. So if you have a device with you, if you would go to tinyurl.com/talk2msd, that's where you can post any kind of comments as you're thinking throughout our presentation. If you have an aha or a question about what we're doing or a suggestion for something that might fit in with what we're doing, we'd love to hear it all. So you can make your posts up on that Padlet during our session. At the end, we probably have time to look at those and respond to them as well. Give you a minute to get that up. It is not case sensitive.
So I started teaching in 2000, and there was a group of 5 staff members on the technology team, and we felt very innovative. We had a grant program we call it the Level 3 competency, and teachers had to basically prove their competency in level 1, level 2, and then they were given the ability to be, I guess, entered into a lottery to receive technology, classroom technology. So talking about equity really wasn't very equitable, depending on the staff members' caseload, or maybe if they had kids at home, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to get all of that technology. This isn't drawn to scale, so later on you'll see how quickly we're advancing in the most recent years. But in 2001, we moved from Macs to Dells, so that was kind of a big change. And then finally in 2006, the level 3 started bringing in interactive displays, so we went with the Promethean active boards. And again, it was about probably 40 teachers per year out of our 1,200 staff members. And along with that board came a commitment of about 20 hours of PD. 50? It's already repressed that into my it was a lot of training. And as a teacher of 6 years, I still had a lot of energy, wanted to get the board. So with that first generation board, each year advances came in the board, the projection. Eventually, in 2014, Mukilteo got Wi-Fi. So we had Wi-Fi, and it was pretty interesting when we talked to other school districts. And we are a very conservative district when it comes to data, which is important for student data. So I also have this thing in my mind that our network guy used to work for the CIA or something, so he's super savvy on that kind of stuff. So at that same installed a classroom standard of a document camera and a projector, not a mounted projector. The only mounted projectors were in those rooms with active boards. So teachers were still struggling with how to set up their classrooms. So 2014 is kind of when everything kind of got going very quickly. In 2015, we decided to roll out staff devices using the Microsoft Surface, the Pro 4. So every staff member had a mobile device, but we had kind of archaic or old, antiquated projectors. We're using a Surface dock. Teachers were worried about undocking their Surface because of display settings could get all messed up, for good reason. Because like 30 seconds of technical difficulties, you lose everybody teaching-wise. But we also decided at that time that we needed mobile devices for students, primarily for testing. So we went with a device as an elementary cohort. We wanted a Windows device, and I was on that committee, and it seemed like we wanted an easy way because kids were already familiar with Windows. They would not have to learn any new ways to log in, etc. But then later on in the year, secondary decided they wanted Chromebooks. So now we're a dual district. We have Windows and we have Chrome G Suite, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, as many of you probably know. And then during this time, I kind of am backtracking. In 2008, Amie was hired, maybe 2007. So she was hired as a .7 technology integration specialist. And this was before our director or even our CTO sitting back here. So she was running the show at .7, providing PD for all of our 1,200 plus staff members. Not to mention pushing into the classroom. When I was early teaching, I was in awe of Amie because she would have her first graders creating pictographs in Excel. I was like, how does she do this? I mean, I would send an email. And so that's probably why she got that job so early on. Then in 2015 is when we kind of restructured, and a technology integration director was hired, as well as the CTO came on a little bit before, so our department kind of got split up to instructional as well as operational, and then we had Brooke heading the department. At that time, I also was hired as a full-time, and Amy's .7, she works like 1.5 in reality, so the district gets a really good deal from that. So, but now we have the ability to try to provide more PD. And then most recently, after this recent levy, our school district decided to standardize every single classroom and learning space with an interactive display. And because of our early adoption of Promethean, we decided to go with active panels as well as a hover cam, document camera in each classroom, and more devices are being pushed out, which we'll talk more about our ratios a little bit later on. But we're not a one-to-one district, but we're hoping to have 2 student per 1 device ratio, so teachers will be sharing a card to kind of promote that technology and move away from just the need to use devices for testing.
And just to add on to that, we didn't just come up with these ideas. We did a program review in our district to really just see what technology looked like and what it should look like and get recommendations. So that was where we came up with, you could probably see in the last 4 to 5 years, we've made leaps and bounds in a short amount of time. If we had the whole list, it wouldn't even fit on there about how many things we've implemented in the last probably 4 to 5 years. So we really made a lot of progress in a short amount of time. It was definitely highly needed. But yeah, with the staffing, increased staffing, we're up to 26 now in our department. Still not a huge department, but I think it's a department that really can support our district pretty well. Instructionally, I know we're still a little bit a smaller department for instructional, but we'll talk a little bit more about how we tap into our strong teachers that are out in the classrooms. We really believe they're the ones that should be teaching a lot of that technology and embedding that into their instruction. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But that's how we came about that. If you have any questions regarding that, we'd be glad to share more about that later. But yeah, we're working on LMS and new student information system. We'll talk a little more about what we've been doing. So, thanks.
So as a department of 3 for instructional technology, we really need to focus our efforts on PD. And one of the things that we've done the past 2 years now is in the spring we find a room that's not being used and we shut the door and we sit all day long with our standards, with the questions that have come in from around the district, with different needs that we know are coming up, and also the big projects that we know will come up for the next year. And we've developed a year-long plan for our PD. I'm going to pull it up in a better view here.
Display issues.
You know, just by setting So one of the things that we'd like to show you is just kind of how we've set it up. We go by month, and we've divided it into what we're going to do for in-person PD, what our online PD focus will be, what we'll be focusing on for communication to the district, and then we have some notes down there about important dates. So at the end of the trimester, days we don't have school, we want to make sure we don't schedule classes on those days. Not that it's ever happened in the past. This year, with the challenge of switching our student information system, we are struggling to keep up with our plan, but we're doing pretty good. So you'll notice as you scroll through, we have everything color-coded. And some of these have little alphanumeric codes as well. And what we've done is tied that into the ISTE standards. So for teachers, educators, it's color-coded. And one of the things that we try to do when we're planning is make sure that we are spreading out our focus, that we're not just giving them trainings that focus on them as leaders, which is really easy to do with all the different types of software that we have available. We want them to be designers, we want them to be collaborators. One of the things that we don't see our teachers doing a lot of is the global collaboration. So we're trying to encourage that as well. And then the alphanumeric codes are the student standards. So we're also trying to let our staff know that if you're attending a class in this area, it's going to tie in with the student standards. So within that, there's also a little designation there that says DLL. Those are our digital learning leaders, and I will talk to you more about those later. But they have a 2-month focus for PD, kind of a broad area, because lots of things fit into that. So right now we're with our digital learning leaders looking at online classroom platforms. Later on we'll be working on accommodations, assessment tools, and at the end of the year, People are getting kind of tired and testing is happening, student engagement. How can we keep those kids interested and engaged in learning when they're starting to burn out and they're looking for that summer vacation? The other thing that we found is that while we know what these terms mean, when we publish this in our district, a lot of people go, well, what is LMS? What is STEM? What is a DLL? All these things. So we put definitions for them down below on what would be included in a class that's described up above. And then we have that posted to our webpage. We publish it in our SharePoint. We talked to our staff. We had an introductory video that was played for all staff on a tri-day and talked through the schedule for them then. So it's out there and they know it. And it helps with planning and preparation.
And our goal really is to educate every single teacher in our district. I know it's not just for the technology teachers that teach these students these skills. We don't have enough time for that, so we really want to educate all our staff. So that's really with our video, we talked a lot about the standards as well so that we can get that message all the way across the board to all of our teachers so they can help support this work as well.
And we might have gotten digital learning leaders from one of our TOSA groups.
Yeah,
So,
I love
and
that
it's-
idea. So how are we implementing it? We just want to talk a little bit about that. So the educational technology team, obviously we meet probably every other week consistently, just to kind of look at and review the work that we're doing. So we work together at the same office space, so we check in all the time consistently. So we're working, it kind of starts at the top, and then we want to make sure that we're supporting the teachers out there doing the work. The digital learning leaders, we'll talk a little bit more about what they look like specifically and how we train them. Librarians and technology specialists, we have librarians that are collaborating consistently with our technology specialists at the elementary level to build that foundation. So K-5, they all get access to technology through either the librarian as well as technology specialists. And that's been recent as well after we did the tech review. And then in secondary, it's mostly librarians. We also have some technology teachers as well. So that's why we really want to make sure that we build that foundation first, and then also the regular teachers are able to implement technology consistently since they don't get as much support at the secondary level. And then face-to-face classes, we're just consistently providing classes with that monthly focus. Online classes, you'll see some research. Amie will talk a little bit about that and some research that she's done around online and access, and if staff really enjoy that or it's not working for them, then we'll share some of that data, as well as just district-wide support and the learning improvement time. So of course, everybody has their different learning improvement time for staff, half days, tri-days. That's we try to get involved in that as well. And we've gotten some good district days as well that we're able to help to reach and implement that district-wide. So this year our focus is on the student information system since we're doing the Skyward Cumulative, so that's been a lot of work, so that's taken some of our time. But we're really using that district time to support all of our staff and for the tri-days as well.
So I'm going to dig in and really talk about the different techniques and tools and tricks and really everything that we have tried to get our staff to professional development opportunities. We're finding that what used to work in the past, when they used to apply for that grant and they had 50 hours of training and we could ask them to come to training at 6 p.m., doesn't work anymore. We don't have funding to pay them. There's no equipment tied to it. So the training definitely has to be relevant. We already know that. But then just the challenge of finding times that work for large groups of people or places to host it have been interesting. So we'll go into some of what we're doing with our district time, how we're differentiating for different learners, how we're using those digital learning leaders, and some of the resources we're providing in a digital format. What we have found over the years is that when we bring our training to the school, we have much better attendance and success. When we used to host trainings in a centralized location in the district and people would have to travel at the end of their day, or we'd host them at the school where the teacher who was teaching it teaches, so they wouldn't have to travel and set up. And we used to be able to get our 10-person minimum easy, and now we're looking at 2 or 3, maybe. So what we're using is our district-directed time. Last year we were fortunate to have it at high school. Every district-directed early release day, we got to go in and teach classes, and we had great attendance that way. This year, every district-directed time is technology, but it is all SIS focused, which is necessary because we have lots of things to learn. So finding time for actual instructional technology that improves curriculum and integration is a little bit more challenging, but we know that if we can get into a staff meeting or if we can use principal-directed time, that we will actually get teachers who will attend because they're interested. It's just hard to fit in their schedule. The other thing is time. So do we offer classes at 6:30 in the morning for high school teachers? Do we offer them at 2 at the end of the day? With high school, there is no good answer. They have 0 period, they have 7th period, they have they're coaching, they're hosting clubs. You'll never get a consistent time that high school teachers will come for PD. So we're offering options before and after and different things there. This idea of when to find that time is what really prompted us to look at online classes. And within our district, there was some question about the efficacy of classes and whether they were worth the time it took to create. So as part of my PGO last year and a master's program, I did do a small research study. And I will say the downside on the study was the small sample group because it was done with one class. We had a classroom webpage training. I taught the first half face-to-face, and I taught the second half online. And we surveyed the teachers who were attending before they started and after they started. And the purpose was twofold. We wanted to find out if they were able to gain in skill level with web page editing skills in both formats. And if so, was one better than the other? And then we also wanted to find out what their perception of the two models of training were. Did they prefer face-to-face? Did they prefer online? So that's what we went in with. And I'm not going to bore you with the entire presentation that came out of it, but some of the results and the graphs are interesting. This one shows the change in perception. The red line is what they responded with before they attended both sessions, and the blue is after. And you can see that for face-to-face, their idea on whether or not it was easy to schedule and easy to get to, it didn't really change. It did go down a little bit on whether they felt like it was an effective model, which was something we didn't expect. We expected change in the online format, but we didn't expect to see much with the face-to-face because people are so used to that. For online, ease of scheduling went up, ease of attendance went up, and the effectiveness, the perception of effectiveness increased by a lot. And then we asked them the final question, which was, if there's a class and it's the exact same content and it's offered in face-to-face or online format, what would you choose and why? And so you can see my sample size was just 12 people, but I had 10 who chose online and 2 that chose face-to-face. And some of the reasons are what we would expect. It's scheduling, being able to wear my pajamas, sitting on my couch. But a lot of teachers talked about being able to do it in 10-minute chunks during their plan time, and that they didn't have to devote a long time period to be able to get the information they needed. A lot of them also talked about the advantages of being able to use training videos and rewind as many times as they wanted. One teacher told me, in a face-to-face class, I might ask once to have something repeated. And if I don't get it, I'm not raising my hand again because I'll look stupid. In your online training, I can rewind it 10 times, and nobody cares. So they did like that format. The people who chose face-to-face, a lot of times it was just because they don't like working in the technical tools. And they wanted someone there to hold their hand when they got stuck. So that we kind of used as validation. We do offer online courses. We have 2 platforms. We've used Google Classroom, then we use Class Notebooks and OneNote. We do like Google Classroom. It seems to be easier for our staff to get in and follow along and figure out what they're doing. We have one class that's worked really well in the Class Notebook because it was a class on creating and using forms in your classroom. And what their end assignment was to take a form they'd created, put it in the collaborative space, give a link to it, tell what grade level, and how they would use it. And then we ended up with this great library of forms that people had created, and they could refer to and use each other's forms. So that was a great use for that one. Another thing we've done with our PD, is we know one size does not fit all for our students, and it does not fit all for our staff. I'm sure some of you have sat in a training and you've been waiting for someone to get the point, and you're waiting and you're waiting, or on the other side, you're the person who really wants to understand and you're struggling because they're going too fast for you. Our staff had mentioned that many times. So we started trying to figure out how we could offer sessions that moved faster, moved slower, and had labels that our staff would not object to. So we don't call them advanced and we don't call them remedial. We came up with tortoise and hare. And our staff members seem to be okay with self-labeling of tortoise and hare. This past August, when we did our cumulative first introduction training, we had at each high school several sessions that were just regular pace. Then we had one tortoise section, which was a smaller size. We promised them we'd get through the basic gradebook setup. You will know how to take attendance, you will have a seating chart, you will have at least one gradebook setup. And we moved slowly, we repeated directions, and it worked great. Now the hare class, we told them, we're just going to go through, we're going to get you set up, and if we have extra time, we're going to look at gradebook analytics, we're going to look at making special groups. So they got to go deeper into what's possible because they were able to move faster. We always have good feedback on those. Now our digital learning leaders, the title of which we borrowed from somebody else. We have what we call computer specialists in every building, and those are staff members at the building who deal with the technical needs. But our digital learning leaders are staff members who work with instructional technology. We ask that over the course of the year they teach at least 3 hours worth of content to their building. This is how we're getting classes in each location when there's only 3 of us. Is they come and meet with us once a month. We give them resources and training so that they can train their building something in the area of our focus. So right now we have some Google Classroom introductions going on. We have at primary online classroom platforms we have decided can be as little as learning how to log in. Kindergarten and first grade, that is what they need to know. So they go back and they offer those classes. Now in our 2-month cycle, that first meeting is in person. The second meeting is by Zoom. And during our first meeting, we survey our digital learning leaders as to what are they comfortable teaching and what do they want to learn more about in our focus area. So they go out and teach, and the second month they come back, and we divide them into groups by Zoom, and we have one of them teach the others what it is they're interested in learning about. So we have some elementary teachers who want to learn Google Classroom, and we have middle school and high school teachers who can teach that.
Yeah, we allow some flexibility within that as well, because we want to make sure some building might have a specific need in technology. So within those hours, they also have some flexibility to train their staff, and we can provide them those resources as well to train those staff members in that specific area as well.
The other thing this lets us do is our OSPI requirement for clock hours is a 3-hour minimum. And like I said, we can't even get them to come for 2 hours after school. So we've created a year-long class at each school called Instructional Technology Bits and Bytes, B-Y-T-E-S, of course. And it has either half-hour or hour-long chunks all throughout the school year. Teachers attend the ones they're interested in, and when they accumulate 3 hours, then they can earn clock hours. Another area that we work on is curriculum integration. With our technical support, we have a work order system called My Support, and we have added a line in there for instructional technology. So teachers can go in and put in a work order saying, I need help finding resources for my science class, or I don't know how to get this cart out with my students and get them started. Please come help me. So sometimes Brandon and I end up just sitting down and planning. We might plan a lesson or a unit. Sometimes we're just doing searches for resources. Other times we go in and model a lesson. Last year I had a teacher at middle school who begged for something other than PowerPoint to display what kids had learned. And she was interested in infographics. So we looked at Canva. I went and showed her how to use it, and she was still not feeling comfortable. So I went to second period, taught the lesson that we had planned together with her class, and then third period, she taught it. So we are available to either team teach, model, plan, whatever they need to help integrate into their curriculum. Another area that we're finding a lot of requests for is accommodations, whether it's speech to text, or text to speech, or translation tools. We have them in Google and we have them in our Office suite. So whichever the teacher is more comfortable with, we're showing them what's available. And then OneNote. That 50-hour training throughout the school year, you used to get a notebook this thick, and it was filled with the little tabs and all the information you needed for the whole year. And they marched out of there and put it on their shelf, and that's where it stayed. And then by May, we'd get to where we needed the content in the last tab, and it was already out of date. So we have moved to putting things in OneNote. And two of the examples that are working well is our new teacher training. In August, we get the honor of the very first day of new teachers, because they need their Surface, they need to know how to sign in, they need to know where district resources are for the next 2 weeks of instructional training that they get in their district. By the end of those 2 weeks, do you know how much they remember from that first day? Maybe this much? So we teach them in that training how to search the OneNote notebook. So as long as they can kind of remember a key word, they can find what they want. But then we also realized that some of the key words that we take for granted, they don't know. So we made a dictionary in there this year. And that's what this picture is. It's letter A. This is the things that we know. We speak active panel and ASOP, and it used to be Aspen, not anymore. And what we did is just put a little blurb in there that tells what it is, who uses it, a link to get there, and if there was further information, it's in there. And it's all cross-linked throughout that notebook. The benefit to this is now I can go in and I can take Aspen out, because we don't use it anymore, and I can update it for cumulative. Another notebook that's very handy in our district is our online access notebook. I don't know how many different curriculums we have that have online tools. And if you're at elementary especially, and you're teaching several subjects, having to know where to go for your math online resources and your ELA online resources and how to log in and how your students log in and how do you set up the roster and assign the content, it's overwhelming. So our online access notebook lists every curriculum in the district. It links to the page that tells the teacher how to log in, how to get there, do we set up the roster or do they set up the roster, and how to give content to their students. That's another one we open during new teacher training and teach them how to get to. And then the last bit of our PD. We focus a lot on instructional technology and curriculum and student learning, but we are also still doing training on productivity tools for our staff members. And because we are a dual platform district, and we have Office 365 and the G Suite available, we do both. And a lot of times we get questions on, which one should I use? Just tell me, which one? And what we keep saying is, you use either one, it doesn't matter. Even if your kids are using Office in the classroom next door and Google in yours, what they're going to come out of school with is the ability to know where the menu is, if I want to make a document, how to format text, and if I need help, how to use the help feature to find the directions. And that is the same thing we're trying to get our staff members to understand. So we offer training in both. A lot of times when I train in Office 365, I'll flip over to Google and say, look, it's the same, and vice versa. So that's the deep dive into PD.
All right, so providing resources has been like not a big challenge necessarily, but we have so many different ways, as Amie was talking about, in OneNote, SharePoint, Google Classroom, Google Drive. It's been interesting. We do have iSupport, which has a knowledge base, but it's not as intuitive as teachers would hope for. This whole Web 2.0 stuff, where you can type anything in Google and it brings you to relevant resources, doesn't really work in systems that you spend the big bucks for in the district, possibly. So we do provide SharePoint resources, which just is a document library. We moved all of our Help How-To resources into iSupport, and you can provide links directly to those resources. So we've kind of backpedaled and put them in other locations, like back into SharePoint. But essentially, we're trying to create dynamic documents. So if we notice something has changed, as technology does change, we can go in and change those documents. And then virtually they can download a new copy instead of providing handouts like in the old days. So we're trying to create dynamic documents to empower problem solvers. So it's been interesting. So we're still trying to figure that out. So if you have any ways that you push out information, provide help how-to resources when you're short-staffed, that'd be awesome to share.
Okay, so now, do you have any questions for us, or do you have anything you want to share today? I know Brandon and Amie now is keeping up on the Padlet, so hopefully we answered your questions on there. And then if there's anything, we might touch base on a couple of those. But any questions, thoughts, anything you'd like to share today? Yes.
I'm curious with Q, have you guys had to make your own training? Because we've heard that training was going to be, like videos and things are going to be provided. Amie, are you making your own? You are, I know it.
Are we at liberty to say? Do we have a...
They
Sure.
have
it's a
a,
safe space.
they have a pretty well-developed, it's called PDC, Professional Development System,
That's
that
what I
has a lot of PDFs and a few videos with some practical links. There are some things that we've done with our setup that makes us, again, not fit what the generic stuff is. So for today, for example, we actually have our elementary teachers are all learning how to put in marks for their progress reports. And with a team of 3, we can't hit all of our elementary schools at one time. So yes, I am creating materials. I did an instructional video for that.
Perfect, we'll be bugging you in a couple of years.
I can send it your way.
And they provide some training as well with their staff for our larger groups. And then also there's a help center right in the interface that it actually is pretty helpful,
Is it?
which is good.
Thanks.
With even some interactive videos that you can watch.
So
Yes.
you mentioned continually that you're a dual platform school. You're using the G Suite, you're using the Office 365. It probably is going to be something that's going to be needed to discuss offline. But what struggles have you had and overcome with being able to use offer the two of them together, logins, things like that?
I think on the back side, it's challenging just to support 2 different platforms at times, but we just keep working as a team together, and we look at, we've actually done an audit with Google to make sure that we're implementing it well, so that's really been helpful through Amplified IT, so that really helped us just look at the back end, the OUs, making sure that it's set up correctly with the correct permissions for staff to actually utilize it well. And then, of course, we're a premier Microsoft district as well, so we get a lot of support with Microsoft. So on the backside, like we do, it is challenging at times, but we just make sure that we're educated in both platforms. On the educational side, we hear staff, before we had it, we just had Microsoft, and they complained that they didn't have Google. So then we implement both, and then some teachers complain that we have both. Why can't we just focus on one? Because we're trying to learn both. So honestly, we're looking at what's best for our kids. So to make sure that our kids have access to both, to prepare them for college, for their career, we don't know what platform they're going to be using in college, so we try to really build good foundational skills for both areas, both platforms. And for the most part, staff really like that because they might like Google Forms for like a survey, they might like OneNote for Office 365, so it gives staff more options. We want that flexibility where they can choose what they really feel comfortable with. And then, of course, like Google Classroom is used really widely. And then using Chromebooks at secondary level, they probably do a little bit more Google. Does that answer your question? It's kind of a broad.
As far as logins go too, our back-end staff has fixed it so that the login is exactly the same for G Suite and for Office 365. So the kids, if they can log into one, they can log into the other.
And we're working on a single sign-on as well, so they sign in once and get access to all the applications. Yes.
Just one thing to share, one thing we found in our district, we have a very small instructional technology department as well, which is so we have created tech teams within each of our elementary, middle school, and high school level, where we meet once a month or once every couple weeks, depending on the needs of our staff, share what's going on, get feedback of what's going on. And one thing that we found, which has been worked well for us, because we tried to provide training after school and we'd get 3 or 4 people to show up, but it was nice. So we started putting out surveys to the staff to say, hey, what do you have questions about? What do you want to learn more about? And then when they would give us that feedback, we'd block out 20-minute sections in their planning time. And so we'd actually come to them, and the tech team would kind of divide depending on their specialties, and we'd push in during their time, during their day, to help them with that specific problem, to get them moving in the direction they wanted to go. And we found that we hit more people that way than we have trying to provide before or after school.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Yes?
Due to the two platforms you guys are using, when you have students save their work, are they saving it to the cloud, and if so, do they have to like select which cloud they're using?
Yeah, and we often, they will assume they've lost a document, but then we'll look in their opposite platform and it'll be there. Staff. So we try to help them as tactfully, carefully with I was thinking of that Saturday Night Live tech skit you got watching with Jimmy Fallon, where it's just like, but it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I mean, we're learning, and our students do not have email access, so we have a tool where teachers can go in and change their password or kind of set that password change. So in that sense, teachers are able to help them out. Kind of.
Yes, there.
So I just kind of had a question to backtrack a little bit. You said that you keep the logins for their Office 365 and their G Suite accounts the same. Do you do that manually, or do you have a back-end system that you're just changing it in one place and it syncs across?
Yeah, it's Active Directory.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that kind of is like dark arts to me. So. Try to also ask my other tech team tactical questions. A lot of broken record technique.
And that's what we're trying to learn that side as much as we can so we can bridge that gap and really work collaboratively together with the operations team as well too. So we're always part of like the audits and saying this is what we'd like to see, so we're always kind of pushing the envelope for educational